King Parikshit ruled justly for 60 years. Then one exhausted moment in a forest changed everything. Adi Parva, Book 1, Chapter 45. In the previous chapter, Jarath Garu brought her husband's sudden departure to her brother Vasuki, who asked whether she carried a child. She did, and from that union was born Astika, who grew up in the Serpent King's dwelling and mastered the Vedas. Now the story turns to the king, whose death set all of this in motion. King Janamejaya wished to know the full circumstances of his father's journey to Svarga, how Parikshit had ruled, how he had lived, and how he had died. He gathered his ministers and put the question to them directly. "You know how my father, greatly renowned, conducted himself," said Janamejaya, "and how he met his end in his time. Tell me fully. Having heard his story from you, I shall pursue what is good and never act otherwise." The ministers were wise men, versed in all dharma. Questioned thus by the king, they began to speak. "Your father was righteous in spirit and a protector of his people," they said. "Hear how that great-souled one conducted himself among us. He established the 4 orders of society in their own duties and protected them righteously. That king knew dharma. He was like dharma itself in living form. Of matchless valor, he protected the sacred earth. He had no enemies, and he himself harbored ill will toward none. Equal toward all living beings, he was like Prajapati himself. Under his rule, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras alike stood firm in their own duties, contented and well-guided. He cared for widows, orphans, the wretched, and the afflicted, and was a delight to behold for all living beings, like a second Soma to the eyes and hearts of the world. His people were content and thriving. He was glorious, true in speech, and firm in valor, and he was a disciple of Sharadvata in the art of archery. He was dear to Govinda, to Krishna, and beloved throughout the world. His fame was great. When the Kurus had been nearly destroyed, he was born of Uttara. Because of this, he was named Parikshit, that mighty son born of the son of Subhadra. He was skilled in royal dharma and in statecraft, endowed with all virtues, master of his senses, intelligent, and devoted to attending on elders. He was versed in the 6-fold principles of statecraft, and supreme in his knowledge of policy and dharma. He protected these people for 60 years. Then fate overtook him, a death brought by the serpent that could not be turned aside. After him, O foremost of men, you came rightfully into possession of this kingdom, inherited from the Kuru lineage, to rule it for 1,000 years. Though still young when you came to the throne, you are a protector of all living beings. In this lineage, no king was ever born who did not act for the welfare and good of his people, as is clear, above all, when one looks at the great conduct of the forebears, who were wholly devoted to right conduct." Janamejaya listened, then asked again, "How did such a father of mine come to his end? Tell me fully. I wish to hear the truth of it." Urged thus by the king, the minister spoke on, intent on what was both dear and beneficial to him. "Your father was always given to hunting," they said, "just as the greatly blessed Bandhu had been, finest of bow-bearers in battle. Having placed all royal duties entirely in our hands, he would set out into the forest. On one such occasion, while roaming in the forest, he struck a deer with a feathered arrow. He swiftly pursued that deer into the deep forest, but on foot, his sword belted at his side, bearing weapons and quiver, he could not find it. The deer had vanished into the thick undergrowth. Exhausted, 60 years old, and touched by age, and hungry, he came upon a sage standing nearby in that great forest. He questioned the sage, who was observing a vow of silence. But even when questioned, the sage did not speak a single word. Worn down by hunger and fatigue, the king saw the sage standing there, motionless as a post, calm and unmoving, holding to his vow. He did not understand that the sage had undertaken a silence. He was quickly overcome by anger. Seized by that anger, your father affronted the sage. He lifted a dead snake from the ground with the tip of his bow and placed it on the shoulders of that pure-souled man. Even then, that wise sage said nothing, neither censure nor approval. He stood just as before, bearing the dead snake on his shoulders, without anger. Through Janamajaya's question to his ministers, this chapter establishes who Parikshit was, how justly he ruled, and how a single act of anger toward a silent sage became the seed of everything that follows. In the next chapter, the account of the death of Parikshit and Janamajaya's resolve moves the story forward. The journey continues in the next chapter.